Last night I came to you with a story from our nation's history about the Wide Awakes, the Hells Angels of 1860, the heroes whose lamps and clubs protected those who dared give voice to the cause of freedom against the corrupt establishment of the day. If you are watching tonight, I trust you are wide awake to the challenges before us as a nation. Once again, we confront an out-of-touch elite seeking to dominate us in every respect, even as they hold on with brittle fingers to the power they have so long enjoyed and abused. They want to compel you into silence about all the wrongs you see, gaslight you into believing things that are not true, or make you out to be a hateful, ignorant bigot for believing things that are. The central question before you is, what are you willing to do about it? In John Ford's classic Western fable, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, we see the tension that exists in so many American endeavors. The film, set in the stateless town of Shinbone, is about the taming of the Wild West and the need for law and order, but also about the acts of hard men such order sometimes requires. Spoiler alert for a movie almost 60 years old, the menace of Lee Marvin as hired gun Liberty Valance, toughest man south of the picket wire, must be dealt with, and the law books of Jimmy Stewart's Ransom Stoddard are not enough. The task falls to John Wayne as Tom Donovan to do what must be done.
Pompey.
As the great John Marini writes, the movie makes clear that without Donovan's heroic virtues and unlawful deeds, there could be no law and civilization in Shinbone, but also that a civilized Shinbone has no place for such virtues or for such a hero. This is the reality that law and order requires. We have borders because they are guarded by rough men prepared to do what it takes to protect the lines that delineate a nation. It is meaningless to say that we have laws in our cities if we defund those Americans who are brave enough to enforce them. This may be repugnant to our nation's elite, but it is essential to a civilized society. As George Orwell wrote in a 1942 essay about Rudyard Kipling, it would be difficult to hit off the one-eyed pacifism of the English in fewer words than in the phrase, making mock of uniforms that guard you while you sleep. You can see that phrase exemplified in photogenic fashion, of course, by AOC. Yesterday, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki dodged a question from Fox's own Peter Doocy about whether the Biden administration was concerned that migrants flooding over the southwest border are not being tested for COVID. Federal officials at the border are dealing with a historic surge of illegal immigration, and they have neither the time nor the resources to test the thousands of migrants they apprehend on a daily basis. Testing is being done by nonprofits, if it's being done at all, even though many of these migrants are coming from countries where COVID is rampant and vaccines almost non-existent. And according to Fox News correspondent Bill Melugin, those charities have been ordered to keep the COVID positives a secret. That means illegal immigrants carrying a virus that represents a supposedly existential threat are being released into small American towns all along the border, often without the knowledge of local authorities. Make no mistake, the Biden administration is now treating foreign lawbreakers better than the American people. Millions of law-breaking foreigners are now walking over the border and being given taxpayer-funded bus tickets and medical care and schooling, while American kids are being denied such things as Democrats cement more lockdowns. Does it bother you that terrorist cartels are more competent at running the border than our own government? That babies and children are being drowned in the Rio Grande and trafficked into sex slavery because the civilized party is back in charge? Those rough men who mind the border apprehended more than 200,000 migrants last month. The last time we apprehended that many people crossing the border was more than 20 years ago. The number of unaccompanied children is once again surging, with more than 2,000 taken into custody over a 3-day period last week, placing enormous strain on border facilities for migrant kids that are already overcrowded. These migrant kids are now coming into the United States faster than the Department of Health and Human Services can release them. But if you raise any of this as an issue, if you question it, if you suggest this looks like chaos being exploited by violent criminals who seek to profit even as they harm America, you will be denounced as a heartless racist or worse. You are supposed to be comfortable with the government the elites give you, which will use emergency powers to keep you masked up, locked down, and prevent you from buying seeds, but will do nothing to stop the cartel benefiting anarchy at the border. Just as the elites feared and hated the wide awakes of the 1860s, so their ideological descendants fear and hate the wide awake Americans of the 2020s. Make no mistake, The progressive left today is the inheritor and continuance of the slave power of yesterday. It is the same aristocratic creed, the same enmity to the Declaration of Independence, the same fixation on the hierarchy of race and caste, and the same dread of Americans who rebel against them, the same horror at the possibility that an ordinary working man, regardless of his race, might wake up to the truth. That's why they do their damnedest to keep wide-awake Americans suppressed, demonized, locked down, and for the rest, to keep them asleep and in the dark. You know the playbook by now. Americans who reject the woke and show they are wide awake are denounced by nattering elites and their media handmaidens as extremist, as dangerous, and, this is rich, as white supremacists. It's a lie, and no one believes it, not even them. Free speech, free soil, free men. It was the wide-awake battle cry in 1860, and it's the same today. Because, you see, the stakes don't change, and neither does the enemy. Only the circumstances do. On one side, you have the enemies of everything this nation has ever been and meant. And on the other, you have the patriots, the Americans, the men and women who will do anything to preserve it, because they know what civilization requires. You are the heart of a nation that has slept for so long. But now, at last, you are wide awake. So now I ask you again, what are you willing to do?